whatever time and place you're at, whether you're in the Antarctic, I don't know what the time zone is in the Antarctic, or whether you're in Mongolia, and I haven't the faintest idea what the time zone is in Mongolia. We are sitting in Chippenham, in Chippenham Folk Festival. We should be in this fine building over there, the Yeld Hall, this medieval building on the far side. However, and that's the bleep of the pedestrian crossing, because I've cleverly put myself next to the pedestrian crossing. They haven't opened it yet, so we're sitting at a fine burger bar, Boston Burgers in Chippenham. And what's the food like, ladies?
Beautiful, really
wonderful
good.
food.
And they do salads as well, and vegetarian and vegan stuff.
That's and vegan, but much like the World Storytelling Cafe in Marrakesh itself, except you can get a burger as well. So anyway, without further ado, we're all going to be telling a story tonight. I think I'm going to do one that I'm breaking in at the moment. It's an environmental story. I don't do stories with morals in general. My mission is to encourage bad behavior, but I think for a change, I think as this is a children's night, I should encourage good behavior. But Chin, who is the central character, the protagonist of this story, was not au fait with good behavior. He was he was the sort of teenager you probably don't. Whoops. The stick just nearly knocked my drink over, my Coca-Cola. Or other brands are available. And so he was the sort of child that complained all the time. He'd be put, and his parents were poor. His father was a poor fisherman, and so all they could afford was broth. And he'd have broth put in front of him, and he'd go, broth again. Why can't you get a decent job? Then I could have some decent food. And Mum would say, but we're doing our best for you. And he said, that your best isn't good enough. Why can't Dad get a good job like a king, for instance? And they said, well, Louis already got that job. And so Louis is already the king. We can't be king. And so now, if you were king, Dad, I could eat what I like. I could have vegan salads or burgers, and I wouldn't have to eat this broth stuff. Yeah. And his mum took the broth away and said, if that's how you feel, you'll have nothing. And his dad said, and besides that, I'm fed up with your whinging. Get out of the house. Well, Chin, still in a mood. I mean, he didn't actually know what pleasantness was. So he went down to the lake, and there was his little canoe. And he climbed in his canoe and he paddled out of the lake. Just whinging. When he saw a bright light, and he paddled towards it. And there was the pearl fairy going beep, 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 beep. And the fairy was sitting in a half shell. And round her waist was a belt of pearls. And the light coming across the lake was from that belt. But either side of her were two guards. I've been doing festivals all year, and I'll be doing festivals the rest of the summer, and there's always security, and the security at festivals are rather pleasant. However, these people did not look pleasant, not the sort of people you'd want to mess with. And Chin thought, I'll keep going back. One day they'll be late to work. And he kept coming back, and he kept coming back, and he kept coming back. He was getting rather thin by this time because he was refusing his broth still. And so eventually the guards weren't there. And he tiptoed onto the island and he tiptoed over to the fairy, the Pearl Fairy. And he reached down to take her belt. When suddenly she opened her eyes. Now, I'm not talking about a fairy the size of something that would fit into an acorn shell. I mean, she was an imposing woman. And she looked at him and she said, "You're Chin, aren't you? And I suppose you're trying to steal my belt." He said, no, not. She said, don't worry. You can have it for 3 months. And if in those 3 months you mend your ways and you learn to be a nice person, I will reward you. But if in those 3 months you get no better, or even worse, woe betide you. Well, needless to say, Chin took the belt and he paddled back and he thought in 3 months she'd have forgotten. And anyway, if I never come near the lake again, she can't get it back. Well, he's walking around the town. I mean, strutting. I mean, he has attitude. And everyone was, where'd you get that amazing belt from? Chin said, well, actually, I dived down into the lake. And I got the pearls from the bottom of the lake, from the shellfish. And each pearl I dive for personally. And people would ask to touch the belt and say, no, get your filthy hands on. And they'd ask if they could try it on. He said, I'm not letting peasants try my belt on. Mierre is littering. I'm picking up. She's throwing her papers away. There's, yeah, but that's difficult to get open the bin and tell stories simultaneously. So, the rumor went round, the story went round about these wonderful pearls in the bottom of the lake, and people were cutting down the trees and making canoes, and the forest was nearly gone, and the lake was fished so heavily, and so much rubbish was being put in the lake that the fish all died, and I mean it was a disgusting place, and poor fisherman, he couldn't get any fish; they were all dead. And 3 months went by. And Chin thought, well, I just won't go near the lake. But so he went to bed. But Mierre would call it the come hither. A force pulled him towards the lake, and he almost sleptwalked to the lake. And he got in his canoe. And without thinking, he paddled off to the island. And there was the Pearl Fairy. I gave you your chance, she said. And what did you do? You squandered it. So, and look at the state of the lake. There's not a fish left. There's not a tree left in the forest. And it was your lies and the greed of the villagers that caused this. I shall make sure that you're never the same again. And he looked at his nose, and it was growing, and it grew into a long point, a long beak. And he looked at his body, and it became a bird's body. And he looked at his legs, they became long bird-like legs, and he found himself turned into a crane. And I've got to show you these 3 magnificent dogs. Anyway, so There's one just hanging back. There it goes. There it goes. And it's making the bleep go. Anyway, she turned him into a crane, and she turned all the villagers into cranes, all the greedy ones. And she said, "You for eternity, that's forever, fly across the sky in search of clean water. And sometimes, if you look up in certain parts of the world, you'll see flocks of cranes flying overhead, and they never seem to land. They just fly and fly and fly in search of clean water. And of course, clean water is becoming rarer and rarer and rarer. Just ask anyone in the Thames water area." So, well, that's my story for today. I'm going to pass you on to Maria Gillen, who flew in last night on an aeroplane powered by elastic bands and paper clips from Cork to Bristol. We put up a tent, which I'd only just dragged out of my shed, so it was covered in mold, at near midnight, by the time we'd fought it out and found the right poles. Fortunately, Justine and Mierre turned up with a brand new tent today, but Maria has already managed to wreck the zip. But that's by the by. I'm going to hand this phone over to Maria, who will tell you a story.
Hello, everybody. It's lovely to see you. I'm just going to put you in to this holder. 1 second there now. Oh, is it coming? It's not.
Pass the phone out to the sink.
Oh, it's done.
Oh, it's done. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what have you
Where's
done away?
everybody?
Yeah, what have you done, Maria? What is it? Everything you touch.
It is today. It's everything I touch today.
Okay. Now we've managed to turn the phone off. Turn 904. Okay, we're back. Gallery view. There we are. We're back. I think it probably didn't change there, but it did. It did for us. We couldn't see what was going on. Gallery view. Can someone go? Dawn, can you put a thumbs up if you can hear what's going on? Dawn said nothing. Close. Ah, there we are. Right, everything's good. Well, I'll now pass this over to Maria Gillen, who hopefully won't touch the device and have it all die.
Oh, dear goodness. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you. Oh, I'm going to take off my glasses. It is just absolutely beautiful here in Chippenham. And can you hear me? Can you hear me on the microphone? Yay! John is saying we can hear me. Brilliant. And Louis is saying he can hear me. Fantastic. So you can see the beautiful blue sky that we have. And just listening to John's story put me in mind of a story. And this is the story. Once upon a time, all the children in the whole village were having the same dream, Louis. They were all having the same dream, and it was full of beautiful colours, golds and blues and purples and greens and oranges, earth colours and jewel colours. It was just beautiful. And behind the dream, there was a tune, and the tune was this: deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle deedle diddle dum. And when they would come down for their breakfast, they'd still be singing the tune to themselves. Deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum. And so the great grandmothers would look at the mothers, who'd look at the children, and they would give that knowing look. The children would go to school, and when they'd come home that evening, the place would feel very special indeed. The children would go to bed, and in the middle of the night, there'd be a little knock on the door, and the mums would open the door gently and they'd say, "Come on, children, come with me. I have something to show ye. And the children would go, what? What? And she'd say, shh, shh, shh. This is a secret. It's just between you and me. And that was absolutely the best thing to say, because when you say something like that to children, and you say, look, people want to say hello. It's real festival atmosphere here in Chippenham. So when the children would get out of bed, they'd sneak down the stairs. And when they come to the middle of the step, there'd always be that one stair that would go, oh, and then they'd all stop and they'd all look around and they'd all say to themselves, oh my goodness, have we been caught? But because this is a story, they were never caught. So they'd go out through the door, and then when they went through the door, the night would be dark and they could feel the path under their feet. They'd make their way to the forest, and there at the edge of the forest, they'd be able to see the moonlight going through the branches of the tree, casting shadows on the ground, and they'd be a little bit afraid, but they'd be more excited than they were afraid. And sure, they were with their mammies. So they'd go into the middle of the forest where there'd be a big green hill, and they'd put their hot little faces to the green hill, and deep in the center of the earth, they would hear deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle deedle diddle dum. And so it was, and so it is, and so it always should be, except the great grandmothers forgot. And then the grandmothers forgot. And then the mothers being so busy on the telephone and watching the television and typing, they forgot too. And the children, they still had this beautiful dream, but they did not know what to do with the dream. They did not know what to do with this beautiful tune. And Mother became sad. Do you remember when Mother Earth became sad? When she cried big, fat tears into the rivers and the seas of the world, and she whoosh, flooded some of the villages. Deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle, deedle diddle dum. She cried. People were worried then, and they began to talk to one another. They forgot they had two of these, two ears, and only one of those, and they kept speaking, and nobody listened. And Mother got angry. Do you remember? Do you remember when Mother got angry? When she pushed her fire right up through the mountain in Iceland? She caused a great white cloud that grounded all the plains. Deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle deedle diddle dum. She roared. People were afraid then, but they kept talking and twittering and tweeting and typing, and nobody listened, except for one young girl who in the middle of the night had a beautiful dream with a beautiful tune behind it. She opened up her bedroom door. She walked down the stairs to that one squeaky step where she stopped still for a few seconds to see if she had been caught. But because this is a story, she had not been caught. She walked down the stairs and out into the night, her soles of her feet feeling the thump of the rhythm underneath them. Deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle deedle diddle dum, until finally she came to the edge of the forest. She went into the forest until she found the lovely green mountain. She put her hot little face to the green mountain, and deep in the heart of the earth, she heard deedle diddle deedle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle deedle diddle dum. She smiled, and she decided that she would sing that tune back to Mother. Deedle diddle diddle, deedle diddle dum, deedle diddle deedle diddle, deedle diddle dum, she sang, and everything stopped. and everything became still. And there was a moment of pure peace. For that is what Mother wanted. And I hope you liked this story, and I hope you tell it forward. But the tune from this story came from the Native American people of America. And in its original form, it sounded like this. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, yeah, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. And now I'm going to give you back to John.
Well done. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Dawn has given you a round of applause. Louis clapping, I think, and Waleed is hiding himself. So I'm going to pass you across to, what's her name? Justine Mierre, who actually is doing very well with a coffee machine going behind her that's making a fantastic noise. But we're hoping it won't get picked up on the microphone. Now I'm going to get that across to you. Hopefully, it'll. No, don't you touch it, Maria.
There we go. Ooh, hang on.
See what I mean?
See, I shouldn't touch it either. Hang on.
Is that okay?
I think so. There you go. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Is this microphone working? Give me a thumbs up. It is Louis. Give me a thumbs up. George, thank you so much. So here we are in beautiful Chippenham, and I feel like John and Maria have told you stories of kind of nature, and I feel like I'm going to share my favorite one of mine, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a little shepherd girl, and it was getting towards the end of the day, and she was rounding up all of her sheep, but she'd lost one of her sheep. She thought, oh, I have to go and find it. And so she put all her other sheep safe in the pen, and she followed where she thought the sheep had gone. And she went into the forest, and she went through the forest, and she found that on the brambles around there were little bits of wool. So she was kind of collecting the wool as she went and winding it along. She was calling out, sheep, sheep, but the sheep was nowhere to be found. So she kept calling and calling and calling, and she got so tired. And she saw a beautiful silver birch tree. If you've ever seen a silver birch, they sort of have white, kind of like brown marks on them. And she thought, oh, I'll just have a rest underneath this birch tree. So she lay with her back on the birch tree, and as she lay back, she felt the tree curve. And she looked up, and she saw in the tree a face. Those brown marks had become a face, a kindly face. And it looked down and smiled at her. But as kind as this face looked, it was still a tree. So she screamed and she got up and she ran away. And the tree went, no, wait, I just wanted to say hello. The girl stopped. The tree said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. It's just that, well, you see, you have feet and you can run and you can dance and I can't, and I just wanted to look over at your feet. She said, would you mind coming to dance for me just so I can watch your feet for a little bit longer? And the shepherdess thought about it, and she realized it must be quite sad not to have feet and not to be able to run and not to be able to dance. So she agreed. And she started to dance around and around and around the birch tree. And as she got into her dance, suddenly she noticed that the tree was swaying with her, and it was bringing its branches down. And then she reached up and she held the branches, and then as she did so, she felt the ground beneath her feet start to move and move and move and move. And when she looked, the tree was pulling its roots out from the ground, one and then another, until the tree was dancing with her. And they danced around and around and around, and the little girl and the tree threw the little girl up into the air and caught her, and she was giggling and laughing and smiling. And they danced and they danced and they danced until the girl got quite dizzy and said, "Tree, tree, you're going to have to put me down." But the tree just kept going and going until the little girl thought she was going to be quite sick, and then the tree realized what she was doing. She threw the girl up in there and caught her so gently, and then placed her at her roots. And the tree put her roots back into the earth. The girl, so tired by her adventure, fell fast asleep. And as she fell asleep, the tree sung to her a lullaby, and it went like this. "We have danced and now you sleep. Memories I will always keep. My thanks to you, your wool is spun. Your sheep is found, good luck's to come. Take some leaves to remember me and the time you danced with a tree." Well, after the girl had slept, and she awoke, and she remembered the lullaby as if it was a dream. She wondered if the whole thing had been a dream, but then next to her, she found, sure enough, all those little clumps of wool that she had collected from the bushes spun into beautiful yarn, just lying next to her. And there, just behind the tree, was the sheep she had lost. And then she remembered. The tree said, "Take some leaves to remember me." And sure enough, around the silver birch, there were lots of leaves. And so she did as the tree had said in her dream. She gathered up the leaves in her apron, and she took her sheep, and she took the wool. She started walking back through the forest. And as she walked back through the forest, she noticed that her apron, where she was holding all the leaves, had grown heavier and heavier and heavier. And she looked down until she couldn't carry it anymore, and she dropped her apron, and there was a clattering onto the floor. And when she looked down, all those silver birch leaves had turned into silver. And so that little shepherdess never wanted for anything again. She had as much as she could ever want, and she and her sheep all lived happily ever after. And there ends my tale. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Louis. I'm going to hand you back to Mr. Rowe. Mr. Rowe, are you ready to be handed back to?
Let me stand first.
Hang on, he's doing the standing thing. Are you ready? Good. Right, there we go. All yours.
There we go. Now, I'm going to do clever stuff. Crossroads, going into the hall where I was hoping to do this from. It's a beautiful hall, the old hall. And then I'll do a poem inside. I'll do Monster Hunt. And let's walk into this beautiful hall through here. Hi. Yes, we are. We're yes. No. Yeah.
Sorry?
I'm on a program. We're doing a program. Say hello.
Oh.
Where this is
That's where you're at today.
Yeah, so anyway, let's another story. Well, me and my I'm gonna do Monster Hunt. It's me and my friend Joey thought, just for a change, this is a beautiful building. Let me show it. Beautiful ceiling. Fantastic. This would be so me and my friend Joey thought, just for a change, that we'd go monster hunting on the monstrous mountain range. Joey said, "I'll need supplies. We'll need supplies." That's what I think. So we packed some peanuts, butter sandwiches, or any sandwich of your choice, and cans of fizzy drink. Well, Joey had a BMX and I had a mountain bike. We went as far as we could on those, and then we had to hike. We'd not gone far up the mountain when Joey called, "Look over there."
What? Sorry.
Look over there. It's the barbless, razorless monster, the one that's all covered in hair. Well, we went a few steps closer. The monster let out a roar. Okay, you can all roar now. "You can't scare us," said Joey. "That stuff doesn't work anymore." Then the excessively hairy monster with enormous hairy head calls us over to a rock, and this is what she said. If you come monster hunting, then I'll put up a fight. I'll gnash my teeth and throw some stones and roar with all my might. But I suspect that's not your wish, that you only want to know if monsters really do exist and how tall do they grow and are there many different sorts and where do they all live. Those answers to your questions I'm prepared to give, providing that you promise me you come with good intentions. After all, we've been around for quite some time without your intervention. That means poking your nose in. No problem, answers Joey. That is understood. Now, why don't you tell all your friends we're really very good and we don't want to upset them or ruin their routine? They haven't come all this way for a monstrous display. You're the only one we've seen, that excessively hairy monster. Put a finger each side of his teeth and let out one. I'm just going to show this fantastic fire engine. Ancient fire engine here. Put a finger each side of his teeth and let out one ear-piercing whistle that made the ground tremble beneath me and my friend Joey so much even she looked perturbed, that's frightened. And then from each side of the mountain came the loudest noise we'd ever heard. And it came with a rumble and tumble, and it came with a squelch and a crunch, and it came with a huffing and puffing, and it came with a gobble and munch, and some of them had 6 heads, and some of them only had 2, and some of them were purple, and some were pink and blue, and some had hair on the palm of their hands, and one had hair on its nose, and one was as bald as the day it was born, and one of them seemed to glow, and when they came up to the rock, of the hairiest of them all, they were more than a little curious why on earth you call so many of the mountains monsters in the middle of the working day, and what could be the kind of games to invite them all to play. I won't keep you long, she whispered, but of a sight that's really worth seeing. You might not have seen them around these parts before, but this is a human being. And there is another. Though they're way past fully grown, but I think they're excessively strange and by far the most curious creatures we found on this mountain range. Then Joey pulled out the sandwiches and offered them around, and without any fuss, the monsters and us sat down upon the ground. We had to agree as we munched our lunch, although mountains have their attractions. We'd best cycle home, leaving monsters alone, trying to work out our human reactions. Now, it's getting very chaotic in here. Generally, well, our live shows are the next live shows from Glastonbury. That could be even more chaotic. But there should be Donald Nelson on this. But when I last spoke to him, he'd been turned off the motorway by the constabulary on account of the fact that there was been a crash further down the road. It will take him some hours to get here, and certainly not in time for this program. So I will announce what's coming up. What's coming up? Sunday, don't preempt, young lady. Sunday, this very 2 days' time, that is, 6 o'clock in the evening, there's Mike Rust. Mike Rust is introducing our worldwide story round. And so come on, tell a story. Then it's not the first next Friday. So the next Friday is the first. So, or something like that. Anyway, it's Dawn Ellis next Friday. And then the Wednesday following that is Justine de Mierre. So do you want to tell us what you're doing?
Yes, I do. So on Wednesday, the 4th of June, I think it's the 4th. Oh, I'll have to shout into your mic. So hang on.
That one in your hand.
Oh no. I've gone.
Okay. Right.
Wednesday, the 4th of June. You tell them, John.
Okay, Wednesday the 4th of June.
Tune.
Tales and tunes. Come in, sing a song, tell a story, a poem, do what you like, stand on your head. And all that. Meanwhile, goodbye from Chippenham Folk Festival. Let's get these fine stewards. Chippenham Folk Festival is run. There's thousands of performers, but the most important people are the volunteers. Yeah, volunteers, yeah, we're there. So can we all shout? Good. Just a sec. Let me get this microphone on. Nothing works. Oh, there you go. There we go. We all shout goodbye from Chippenham Folk Festival.
Hey!
Thank you. There you go. they're very well behaved, these volunteers. You'd think by their times of life they would learn how to misbehave, wouldn't you? But anyway, meanwhile, well, yeah, all right. Yeah, well, we're working on it. So, meanwhile, bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Right, I want to leave. How do I leave?